This Clippers-Wolves trade is focused on D'Angelo Russell. The LA Clippers can be described by one made-up compound word this NBA season: sneaky good. They may be under .500 right now, but just like the rest of the league, they've been ravaged by injuries. Anyone who watches the team sees how hard they play night in and night out. Paul George has been great for them when he's been able to stay healthy this season, and there are even rumors that Kawhi Leonard could return at some point this season. If both of those guys can get healthy before the playoffs, watch out. Defense has been the staple of their game plan this year, with Ty Lue making in-game adjustments like only he can. However, with both George and Leonard sidelined, both their offense has struggled. Even with George healthy, it's been questionable at best. They don't have a ton of great contracts, but if they could put together a trade for an offensive spark plug, why not contact the Minnesota Timberwolves? They're a young, up-and-coming team who could be active at the deadline. Minnesota has been a fun team this year, but if they want to be serious about making the playoffs, maybe adding depth could be the way to go. Would they be willing to let go of D'Angelo Russell in order to prioritize that? LA Clippers receive D'Angelo Russell, Josh Okogie. Minnesota Timberwolves receive Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, Serge Ibaka, Brandon Boston Jr. 2025 first-round pick. This trade may seem odd for the Timberwolves, but it would accomplish the aforementioned goal, adding quality depth pieces to the roster. If they want to be a perennial playoff contender, this could be a smart pathway to consider. D'Angelo Russell would be headed to LA in this deal. He's having a solid season this year in Minnesota. Russell is averaging 18.6 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 6.8 assists while shooting 39.3% from the field and 33.7% from three-point land. As for what the T-Wolves would get, all four guys they'd receive could make an impact in their rotation. Terrence Mann is probably the most highly valued. He's averaging 10.6 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 2.5 assists this season while shooting 49.7% from the field and 39.3% from three-point land. Both Luke Kennard and Serge Ibaka have shot the three-ball well this season, so they'd help Minnesota's offensive spacing. As for Brandon Boston Jr., he's shown flashes of being a great player, and the T-Wolves would be able to give him more of an opportunity. Overall, this trade could give both teams something of value. The real question is, would either side be interested in a deal like this? Let's start with the Clippers. Should they inquire about this sort of trade? Would this trade make sense for the LA Clippers? Obviously, this deal would be gutting the depth of the LA Clippers a bit. That much is clear. However, they do have some pieces in the rotation who could step up and replace the minutes they'd be losing. Plus, D'Angelo Russell would obviously take up some minutes as well. Russell would be taking over the majority of Mann and Kennard's minutes at the guard position. Plus, this would clear up roster spots if they wanted to explore the buyout market. James Ennis has already looked pretty good in his couple of games with the team. LA would also be getting Josh Okogie in this deal, but he'd be more of a throw-in. That being said, he's still only 23 years old. He has a ton of potential on the defensive end, and he can take over some of Mann's minutes as well. He's just not as polished of a three-point shooter. Replacing Ibaka's minutes would be fairly simple as well. He only averages around 16 minutes a night. The Clippers just guaranteed Isaiah Hartenstein's contract for the rest of the season, and with how well he's been playing, he could easily take Ibaka's minutes. All in all, this trade would be about getting a former All-Star point guard. Kawhi Leonard has been asking for a point guard for a couple of years now. Russell would be the third star in LA as they hope to compete for championships once their main duo returns. Would this trade make sense for the Minnesota Timberwolves? Some Minnesota Timberwolves fans might not be happy with this trade. In fact, with how close D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns are, this trade may not be likely at all. But in the long run, this could improve the team moving forward. Obviously, the star power factor would be severely depleted. Russell is a part of their big three, and losing him for depth would hurt that. But that added depth might help more than it hurts. The Timberwolves don't have a ton of depth, so adding four rotational pieces would be huge. Mann is the face of this trade. He may already be 25 years old, but he's still young in NBA years. The versatile wing has plenty of room to grow as both a scorer and defender, but is already more than sufficient in both of those areas. He'd be an immediate contributor for the Wolves and would be for years to come. Minnesota ranks 22nd in three-point percentage this season, and getting Kennard and Ibaka would help that a ton. Kennard is a sharpshooter, nailing 44.1% of his threes this year, and Ibaka's up around 40% too. Lastly, Boston Jr. is a great pro. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.